Hi, in this video we'll discuss about MineWall and how to implement MineWall in production. To start off, what is MineWall? MineWall is a firewall solution to Minecraft spam botting, crash botting, ping botting, etc. It differs from other implementations because it isn't situated on the server but outside the application layer on a firewall. How does that help? It requires less computing power to run, it can handle large attacks with hundreds of thousands of incoming connections, its bottleneck is mainly bandwidth, which we'll discuss later, it's easy to install and hosting provider compatible. 1. Computing power. Because of its implementation under Iptables, designed by analyzing normal player behavior, computing power usage is minimal. This means even small machines can handle large attacks with tens of thousands of watts easily. 2. Mitigation potential. Because it doesn't rely on blacklisting, but instead of smart whitelisting, this means that independent how large the attack is, you have full control over how much you expose yourself to the attack. Bandwidth limited. With most hosting providers now having stable volumetric attack mitigation, this tool becomes the middle layer between the volumetric attack mitigation and the server. This means that independent on how large the attack is, MineWall is going to be able to mitigate any botting attacks. Production ready. While we are still working on the detail, MineWall is mainly production ready and can be used by networks once thoroughly tested. As this video ages, we expect this to be fully solved and the software to become fully stable and capable. The three-way mitigation system. Volumetric. To mitigate volumetric attacks, we recommend providers like OVH that have good mitigation potential when the attack goes over a specific point. For spam bots, MineWall can significantly reduce the bot throughput, meaning very few bots actually reach the server. This almost fully resolves attacks that would otherwise overwhelm any layer 7 anti-bot. And for smart bots and the bots that manage to get through, we recommend an anti-proxy or a heuristic anti-bot system to finally detect and block smart bots from being able to connect or run malicious behavior on your server. Many of these are free and you can find them on Spigot.mc without any worries. And finally, thank you for watching. I will now go to my main screen so I can show you how we can implement it in production and show you what I do to create the MineWall testing server. Hi. Before we go ahead and go into Bash, let me first discuss about volumetric attacks and how they're mitigated in this case, in this example. I know and that a big concern for people when reading about my firewall was, okay, it may work a bit, but what does it do in relation to volumetric attacks? Because obviously there is the situation where you will get a 5000 megabit throughput and your bandwidth is only gonna be 1 gigabit, so 1000 megabits. In that case, what are you gonna do? And they're right, MineWall is not made to solve that, and it will not solve that. To do that, you need a hosting provider that is capable of detecting this kind of attacks and stopping them in the tracks. Because of the limitation in the number of proxies that are available, the chance of an attack becoming volumetric and actually overflowing your bandwidth are pretty slim, and even then, if the attack is large enough, OVH will generally detect it and lower it to an amount that you can actually handle on your own. With MineWall and potentially a plugin to handle smart bots. Because of that, I've used OVH. I like OVH because of their mitigation potential. This is also what many other providers out there use. This is what TCP Shield uses. This is what many servers use without TCP Shield. And the reason because of that is that OVH has really good volumetric attack mitigation potential. If you use them, you'll really rarely see attacks going through. Now, one trick that I want to mention is that you do not need game mitigation for Java edition. What that mitigation means is that you will handle UDP better, but it will not handle TCP any different than normal OVH will under normal circumstances. So just use anything as long as it has mitigation, which all of the OVH servers do. You can even use a VPS, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video because they have really good price performance ratios pretty much. So yeah, let me go ahead and go back to Bash. Now that we're in Bash, let's see what machine we're dealing with and how it manages to handle attacks with bots. So, okay, first let's see the CPU. Obviously it's not a good CPU. It's a decent one, but it only has 2 cores. It only has 4 gigs. And this is all you need to be able to mitigate up to 50k, 100k bots without the CPU usage going over 30%. On this, I've already run about 300, 400 players with no issues. I was using this in conjunction with hub proxy to mitigate provenance when they weren't able to get OVH machines. So we had a hybrid solution where they would have machines from another provider, from Hetzner, and or Mylock, I think it was Mylock, and they needed DDoS mitigation, and we used this for that. But obviously botting was also an issue, so we had this implemented, or a predecessor of this implemented. So if I go Iptables list, you can see that it only has one thing, except that UDP thing, which is for WireGuard, a WireGuard implementation by Cloudflare. But everything else, it's the MineWall implementation, which you see is the first one, and it's here, and it's the one which I'm just gonna show you really soon, and it's in root, I think. No, oh, MineWall. Okay, in tools, and this is the firewall. Everything here is public. It works on multiple ports because I have multiple clients that I use this with. And yeah, this is about it, and that's all you need. Now, the whitelister, which is also really important, needs to be put on a cron job, and what it does is, aside from updating the IP set, it also has this contract command, which is really important. And what this does is it checks what players are probably legit and we should send, or we should recommend for whitelisting. And what happens is this IP gets sent, it gets categorized. It gets categorized based on my machine in the back end. Now, this can be also made to work with public ones or with DIY solutions. So if you have full access over your machines, I'd rather use something that is public and not have to have this additional layer of detection, because then you don't have full access to everything. In this case, I have this done because I know many servers that will be using this are going to be small to medium, and they're not going to be able to afford building their own API system. So yeah, this is about it in terms of the firewall. Now, I use it in conjunction with hub proxy to do a reverse proxy, so people can benefit from OVH while not using it. And this way you mimic pretty much TCP shield. And I know many people have been let's say aggravated when I told, okay, we can do that, but yeah, you can do it. It's not gonna beat TCP shield. TCP shield is way more complex and has way more features, but it's gonna provide something, and it's gonna provide something valuable. So I'm gonna put a copy of this in the description or the blog post, which is gonna be associated to this, or if not, I'm gonna post a link to my previous tutorial where I discuss how you can set up this hub proxy. Okay, so now I'm gonna transition to my backend machine and show you there where I have the server and how many bots are going through. Okay, now that we're in game, we can see we have launched an attack and it's doing decently well. It's only managing to get 10, 12 bots through. This is with the firewall enabled. And obviously, as you would have a firewall put on the server too, this would mean that you will fully mitigate the attack. Now, if we try to join directly, you'll see I can fully and directly join. There's no issue with that. There's almost no delay, so that's to be expected. STPS, the map. It's not using too much RAM. And yeah, now let's disable the Iptables rule and let's see what happens. So if you give me one moment, because I'm a bit stupid and I didn't prepare for this, but here we go. Now tables